Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, yeah. See, if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place. Creating the force and the power to live a better day. Just know that love and joy and peace is one in all of the same space. That you were chosen just like God. Alchemize your energy. That's right. Alchemize energy. Only you can make the change. Alchemize your energy. Shine so bright from darkness to light. From darkness to light. Yeah. And you'll find your way out. Oh, it won't seem way out. The power of God will flow through you from way out.
Welcome. We are back at it once again. It's a Friday afternoon. You know, they say today is the Independence Day, but I thought it was on July 4th. But they didn't move Independence. They didn't move all these holidays to different times and dates and stuff like that. Who knows when the date is? You know, they can just move it from the 4th to the 3rd. Like, that's the thing. All my life has been the 4th. Now it's the 3rd. So I don't know. So, you know, everything's shut down. I guess it's the holiday, you know, whatever. So, but welcome, you know, happy 4th of July, Baba.
Thank you.
Even on the 3rd. Independent Day. So anyways, you know, so it was interesting, you know, this week I came across this Facebook post, and you know, I gave my opinions on it, but you know, I said, well, let me find another person that might be able to clarify it more than I can, because I'm just still a baby in the religion compared to some of the people that have, especially a Baba that has, you know, most Babalaos, like before they become Babalao, they have to like do, you know, extensive training on the Odu. So let's first bring up what the statement was, and then we'll just get into it. All right. So the Orisha lifestyle, Obafemio had the question: what is the basis of the belief that all of the Orisha are within you? Okay. So, you know, my answer, you know, because I practice Lukumi, so I was like, well, you know, according, you know, I thought it did, right? So it said, so this is my response. If each Odu talks about a specific part of the body and an Orisha is born in that Odu, then I think people then associate that Odu and Orisha to a part of the bodily function. That's how a Babalao can tell how, hey, you know, you might be having stomach problems or whatever issue, you know, things like this, right? So I was like saying that each Orisha and Odu represent different bodily functions and things like that. He said, well, where does it say that? What's the Odu that speaks of bodily parts? And so I brought up Agbe Meiji, you know, I brought up Oyeku Meiji, I brought up different Odus, but you know, Osa Meiji, you know, but I might be speaking from a Lukumi standpoint, but you know, and from what the Lukumi, Otora Meiji, those particular Odu speaks of different things like breath, speech, mental balance, emotional health. But I want to really be clear. I didn't want to just only be just like talking and not be clear. So that's when I like commissioned you, Baba. I said, listen, let me ask Baba, you know, what he thinks of this subject. So let's kind of get into it. And we could also go into other comments that were made about this, but I really wanted to like see what your take on this is. What is your take on it?
You want to commission me to
to explain like what is it?
Step in the crossfire.
Right. Yeah. I'm not throwing you right out there in front of me and say, okay. No, I'm just joking.
Listen, I want to
took bullets. I already been hit. Bow. I've been hit. And I just don't know where to go and how deep, because I can't go that deep into the Odu because I'm still learning. So I said, well, let me ask Bob and see what he might know.
I'm going to start by being pretty controversial, but you know, I've been taught what I've been taught, and I know what I know, and there it is. So here's the point.
Wait, well, before that, let's do our prayer.
Good call. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, don't be sorry. Sometimes I get anxious to jibber jabber and miss the basics. Forgive me. The Agwato, blessing of long life. Akabo, welcome. Adupoy Ori Egun. We thank the ancestors for their wisdom. Ire Lon Alafia. Aye. May there be peace on earth. Here's what I want to say about the verses of Odu. There's a phenomena, and I shouldn't probably say it because it's judgmental, but there's a thing I call Odu thumping, which is the Ifa equivalent of Bible thumping. There are two types of approaches to spirituality, religion, metaphysics. One is dogmatic, and by dogmatic, that means that people who practice a particular faith believe that they are in direct communication with God. They have all the answers. Everything they say is true, and it's all been coded in scripture, and there's no room for growth, change, or deeper understanding. I will say two things about that. One, I don't take the dogmatic approach at all. And in fact, there's a verse, I want to say Otoromeji, that says there are no shrines to Olorun because there's nothing that we can know definitively about God. So it's definitely admonishing us that the dogmatic approach is not traditional. And they would use a different word, but in contemporary times and in theological circles, the opposite of dogmatic is known as existential, meaning you base your answers on kind of a combination of direct experience, interpretation of symbolism, and then metaphysical overview. All right. So to begin to understand Odu, I haven't seen a lot of understanding of this, but we have what are called keys to unlock the meaning of the Odus. One of the keys, one of the strongest keys, one of the least used keys, and one of the most really helpful keys is the fact that most, if not all, traditional religious wooden sculpture is a key to understanding specific Odus. If you want to, for example, understand how to do Iyami initiations, you can read the verse, and if you read the verse, I guarantee you'll have no clue about how to do an Iyami initiation. But if you read the verse, and if you have at least one or two statues depicting an Iyami initiation, it's absolutely and immediately clear right away. So you have those visual clues. Also, the robe, this is a better one. This represents what Ifá calls the universal knot. In science, that's known as quantum entanglement. It's symbolic of the fact that everything's related to everything. But also, this symbol is found contained within the Odu pot. And if you've been blessed to participate in the ritual where the Odu pot is, the whole concept of quantum entanglement, meaning everything connected to everything, becomes really fundamental to our existential understanding of Odu. And so that's why we have mat as sacred space. We sit on the mat to do religious work because the weave of the mat represents the fact that everything's connected and interconnected. And the importance of quantum entanglement is really at the foundation of what I call Ifá paleoscience, which is Ifá ancient science, which in Yoruba is Ijinla. It's just not possible to interpret Odu, in my opinion, without some sense or without some understanding of the big picture of the metaphysical principles at play and of how they fit together. And those principles, you can find those principles, they're usually painted on the wall of the shrines in traditional Yoruba culture. The art of painting transcendent symbols and using them as a trigger for interpreting Odu is called Ogbo. The Orisha Ogbo teaches you how to mark the symbolic language of Ifá outside the oral recitation of the scripture itself. And so that's an element that needs to be considered beyond the scripture. And also, I think most importantly, well, there's two other factors. One is that the real learning in my experience comes from the ability to open the DNA memory link we have to our ancestors and learn from them directly. There's ways to tap into our DNA. DNA holds both genetic potential, but it also holds real life experience and real life memories. When you see people talk about receiving a transplant and having memories of the donor of the transplant, this is a real thing. And in traditional Ifá, that's not only a real thing, it's an understood thing, and it's incorporated into the ritual process so that we have ways of accessing specific information from specific, I would say, genetic receptacles. You know, there's, within a traditional shrine, there's cremated ashes of elders, especially their brains and their heart. And those cremated ashes are believed to be and are in fact like it's like the memory disk on your computer. They contain information, and if you know how to access that information, it's really hugely helpful with regard to answering the kinds of questions you're asking today. And I would say the other thing that's really helpful is there's the issue of what I call liturgical Yoruba. Understanding liturgical Yoruba opens up the Odus. I am of the opinion that a lot of the translation of liturgical Yoruba into English is poor, inadequate, and in many cases just flat out wrong. And that creates a lot of confusion and arguments and petty disagreements that are a waste of time, really. And so that, the translation of liturgical Yoruba is a fairly exact science, because the Yoruba language is based on what's called elisions. And elision is, if you take a sentence and drop all the vowels, it makes a word, and that word, if it's a liturgical word, you can interpret what it means by putting the vowels back in. So I'll give you the clearest example. It was an example that literally changed my life. Ifá ya ballet. Yeah, so you've dropped the Ifá is the first part of the elision. Then ya, you drop the I of Ia, Ifá, ya, Ia. Ba, lay, that you drop the first fragment of Baba. And so the sentence becomes Ifá, Ia, Baba, Ile, which literally means the wisdom of the fathers and the mothers of earth. But it's also the name of a ritual used in Ogboni to settle gender disputes. And so when I wrote my first book, Iwa Pele, I wanted to talk about that ritual. So I looked up Ifá ya ballet in the Yoruba English dictionary just to make sure that I understood it correctly. And when I read the definition, it definitely had a big impact on me. Here's the definition of Ifá ya ballet as translated in the Ifá Orisha dictionary. I think it was translated certainly by Crothers, and also with the help with a guy named Abraham Moses, I think his name was. But in any case, their translation was the ascension of our Lord and Master Jesus Christ to sit at the right hand of God our Father. And when I read that, I thought, sorry, that's not so good. I don't believe it. I'm not buying it. That's not how I understand this word at all. So after that, I really made a point of looking up words in the dictionary and then checking the elision to see what the sentence said, to see if the sentence matched the definition. I'll say in my humble opinion, one of the biggest mistranslations, which has really distorted our perception of our faith, is the word Abo. The word Abo in Yoruba means offering. It does not mean sacrifice. If you look through the literal teachings of the prophet Orunmila, he never talks about sacrifice. The sacrifice is a Western concept related to Christianity. Offering is an alchemical process related to the paleoscience of all of Africa prior to Christianity. And I think by mistranslating the word Abo to mean sacrifice, we've literally missed the whole point of Ifá, in my humble opinion. So one of the ways to start to understand the bigger picture is to look at the liturgical words and not only see what they mean, but see how they evolve from each other and to see how they become the foundation for creating new words that trace the evolution of creation and evolution itself. And does that make sense? Yeah, I hope.
Yes, it does. And I wanted to show you something really quickly, so that you could like get an idea of where I got my understanding from, like why I thought, where, I don't know all of the Odu, but where my thoughts of like the fact of Ifá and the Odu and how that, okay, so it says from the Ifá is generally believed by all Babalaos as message from God. It is mainly a guide to humans in all their endeavors, among which there is healing system. It is a reservoir of curative and therapeutic materials. The above explanations are in agreement with Ayo Salami. Thus, Ifá can simply be said to be the religion or divinity brought into the world by Orunmila. In addition, Igbagbo, Yoruba, Nipe, Ninu, Esin, Lati, and Aisan, meaning that healthcare flows from religion. It says this is further developed in another way by a Babalao, thus Ifá being a word from the creator where all wisdom resides, be it science, technology, etc., has numerous usefulness, most of which is healing purpose. Everything related to healing is contained in all the Odus versus corpus of Ifá. The verses provide information on healing materials, processes, and procedures. So methods of application. Ifá is a full spiritual authority and power, ashe, for therapy, right? Power for therapy.
Wait a minute. Enough of this.
Okay, so all right, so let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Here's the first thing.
This is from the book called hold on, what's this book? It's a paper called Ifá Therapeutic Practices Among Yoruba People in Oyo State. This is from that paper. Yes. So I read that paper, and it was actually when I was doing a debate, I brought that up. So let's go.
Let's start here. Ayo, who I knew, Ibaye, he's passed away now, was a really good scholar, and he was not initiated into Ifá. He was not a priest. He did not go into possession. He did not know any of the mysteries. He didn't have the training that priests have who are interested in developing connection with spirit. I don't care what he thought about anything. I prefer to rely on the wisdom that I was blessed to receive from my initiated elders. Come on, can we start there? Is that you? The phone ringing, or
no? That's not me. I'm back here.
Here we go. Hold on.
Sorry, somebody's calling them on Facebook.
Sorry. Let me just handle this real quick.
You need to take a second, and I'll just read the rest of this while you're doing it.
No, listen, and I'll see if she... Oh, here we go. Wait a minute. Just give me a second. This is the king calling. We need to give her props. All right, so let's talk about it. So my point is that, Baba Salami was a nice guy. He was sincere. I think before he transitions, he may have been initiated. But I do know that for me personally, the real learning came from, number one, the fact that my elders in Ode Remo connected me to a ancestral spirit who wasn't initiated at Awo, taught me how to communicate with that spirit, and gave me the Eureka to be able to summon that spirit up and ask it specific questions about what we believe and how we practice the faith, which was really, really helpful for me, because 40 years ago, there were no teachers in the diaspora. There was no internet. I was just kind of floundering around trying to figure stuff out. And the strength with which they connected me to that particular spirit was just truly astonishing. It took me a while to trust that information. It took me a while to share it with others, but the more I trusted it, the more I shared it, the more it rang true. The other thing is to understand is consciousness infuses creation through Odu. So there's no one consciousness of God. There's 256 streams of consciousness, and they're all connected to chakras in the body, not body parts. The word for chakra in Yoruba is Iwaju, and Iwaju become receptacles for information that's connected to our higher self. And here's where the concept of quantum entanglement comes in. There are 9 billion Oris on planet Earth. And when you ask the question, how many Iponris are there? Iponri is the higher self. Ifá says there are only one Iponri, and we're all connected to it. So in the process of expanding our consciousness, of growing and learning, and increasing our existential experience of the wisdom that comes directly from Earth, in the process of learning how to live in harmony with Earth, we gradually move towards the source of all creation, and we're all connected to it. This is a fundamental difference in Western science and African science. Science is described through the use of mathematics. In the Western world, there's a linear concept that 1 + 1 is 2, 2 + 2 is 4, 4 + 4 is 8, and like that. It starts small and it gradually gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Ifá mathematics, as it's taught through the oral traditions related to Odu and Ifá, says that in the beginning, all consciousness was one, and that diversity in the universe was created when the unity of the one becomes two, the unity of the two becomes four, the unity of four becomes 8. So it's a process of division. And if you look at the construction of and some of the metaphysical information taught with the giving and the naming of the Odu pot, we can see that the Odu pot is created by 4 juxtaposed symbols of the flower of life, which is very common in Egypt, right? And so the fact that the Yoruba language is 30% Coptic Egyptian tells us that there's a resonance there. So that if you understand the concept of the flower of life and how that relates to consciousness itself and the source of creation and the generation of what we call Odu, that becomes a really, really invaluable source for interpreting Odu and interpreting metaphysics. There's clear evidence, which is suppressed in academia, that there was at one time a global culture with common beliefs and a common language. And there's clear evidence of that, I believe, in Africa. And the mathematical sophistication it took to build the pyramids was incredible. Now, a lot of people are offended when I make that association, saying that I'm trying to diminish the influence of Africans on Africa and displace it to Egypt. I happen to think that Egyptians were and are Africans, but more fundamentally, Nigeria has its own pyramids. In 1912, when England colonized Nigeria for the first time, they went through the country and they blew up all the pyramids using dynamite. The pyramids were also surrounded by a structure called a stupa. Stupa is a common meditation space used in India. And it's further testimony of the fact that we're dealing with some universal principles based on universally held beliefs rooted in a universal understanding of science. So, do you have any questions on that? I want to take a little bit of a dive into the language today and maybe continue the conversation into the future. You good with that? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then are we going to get into the actual question of the Orisha being a part of the body? Probably not a part of the within us, right? Because I think the question is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll answer that right now.
Oh, I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button.
There was one consciousness that came to
are
Earth.
all Orisha within you, right? So like the thing is that, okay, why would that be a question if the Orishas are represented by an Odu? The Odu is represented by multiple different things. I mean, each Orisha is birthed from an Odu, right? Each Odu births an Orisha. And don't those Odu represent different aspects of the body? Or is that like a
No, that's not. No, they don't. They do not.
Okay, so let's clear that up because I wasn't sure about that. I thought that they did.
Take a deep breath, and I'll explain it as I understand it. Odu tells us that the flower of life creates consciousness. The flower of life is 4 spheres containing 64 Odu each. And each of those 64 Odu times 4, 256, is a different frequency. Frequency is a sound. It's not a body part. It's not a thing you can touch. It's a sound. All right. And in terms of, and where it becomes a little confusing perhaps, we've been told that Olodumare is God. Well, that's not true either. Olodumare, from the Elysian Olo, Odu, Oshumare, means the owner of the womb of the rainbow serpent. So Olodumare is a word we use to describe the complete spectrum of resonance within creation. And all of those 256 streams of consciousness are interconnected and of the same essence, right? If you know, look at it this way: middle C on the piano is frequency of 432 hertz. That's a way of measuring the amount of vibration in a particular sound. 432 hertz is A, whether you're in China, South America, LA, or New York. A is A. It's a universal phenomena, and it's a resonance that not only reoccurs at the same frequency, but whenever it encounters manifestations of itself, it becomes entangled and becomes one. So resonance is a universal principle that carries with it information. And it's the way that information interacts with other frequencies that creates diversity in creation. So consciousness, the ability to understand self and world, pass through the womb of Odu one time. We call that passing Oro, meaning spirit descends. So the consciousness of God came into the world and then fragmented into trillions of pieces. And so every fragment of creation is a fragment of the creator. We call that a holographic universe, symbolized by quantum entanglement or the universal knot of Ifá. So the notion that anything can be separate, this is not consistent with the teaching of the prophet Urumia, which is why all these rules about who's worthy, who can practice Ifá, can you be gay and do Ifá, can you be a woman and do that, all that stuff is irrelevant because everything is interconnected. Everything is an expression of the eyes of God looking back at itself. And it's why the first principle of Iwa Pele, or good character, is make no judgment. So, when people talk about, I got to do your initiation over again because you received the wrong Orisha, it's hard not to laugh. There's no such thing as receiving the wrong Orisha. Everybody has everything. Let me say it again. Everybody has everything. So you can't receive an incompatible Orisha because everybody has everything. Now, it is true that certain Orisha may be stronger in terms of you connecting with your discipline your destiny for this lifetime. That's definitely true. And we do divination to try and get clarity on that. But, notions of, they gave her Oya by mistake and she lost her mind. No, sorry. When people go through trauma during initiation, it's because the ritual process has triggered unresolved emotional trauma. And most elders, unfortunately, outside of Africa, don't really have a lot of training on how to resolve those emotional contradictions. And so that makes it look like the wrong Orisha, perhaps. It makes it look like we're at war with ourselves. But theoretically, theologically, metaphysically, and in terms of the psychology of Ifá, that's simply not possible. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You don't have to agree. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But you can feel, we've been doing this for 40 years, you can feel the resonance. Resonance gives off a vibration. It affects your entire body in a consistent manner. Resonance also creates color. Color also resonates stronger with certain chakras in the body, not body parts. So Obatala, Ochosi, Yemaya, Eshu, Ogun, Oya, Oshun, Shango, and then you get down into the legs, it's Egun and Nana and like that. So there are what I would call power centers within the body that are easy receptors for Orisha, but the Orisha itself emanates in consciousness, and consciousness is a part of the fabric of all of creation. The real key to understanding that is actually fairly recent in the science of quantum physics. A man named Robert Temple, based on the work of a man named David Bohm, they've developed what's called quaternal plasma quantum physics, which means that 99% of the universe is plasma. Now, plasma is subatomic particles that have not yet formed into atomic structure and not yet created the physical world that we're familiar with. So if you look at the liturgical words used to describe creation and evolution, it's absolutely 100% consistent with the notion of subatomic plasma clouds morphing into atomic structure And that atomic structure carries with it the fragmented consciousness of subatomic particles in an organized and coherent way. Does that make sense? I hope. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
The question is that how does that connect to the Orisha and Odu, and how does that explain like the connection to us?
Yeah, all right. So consciousness, the ability to see yourself, to understand yourself, and to relate to the world around you, is a function of frequency. Everybody's consciousness is born in 256 frequencies. That's the common link between everything and all of creation. Each of those frequencies carries with it a different stream of information, a different perspective, and a different way of functioning in the world. There's nothing outside of consciousness that has been identified, certainly by science, nor anything outside of consciousness that's been identified by Ifá. The word Orisha means specific form of consciousness. Ori, the spirit that selects, Sha, meaning choice. So it's select or specific forms of consciousness within the pool of the bigger scope of creation, and consciousness is a fundamental principle in creation, right? So everybody has consciousness that's connected to divinity. Everybody has the ability to connect to spirit. Everybody is worthy of being treated with dignity, and everybody is capable of forming a collective that improves the quality of life in the world. To me, that's really, really clear. You seem to be still a little unclear about that.
But right, because everything that you're saying is actually saying that the Orisha is inside you. Because if consciousness comes from our mind, our Ori, right, our mind,
right,
and all the Orisha are within that.
Yes, no.
Wouldn't the Orisha be within you?
Yeah. No. Yes.
It might not be exactly what I thought, but I'm like,
and that's exactly what I'm saying. We're on the same page. I may not have expressed it as clearly, but everybody. The easiest way for me to explain it is everybody has 256 frequencies that generates consciousness. Each one of those frequencies is associated with an Orisha. We deal with maybe a dozen what I would call fundamental or primary Orishas, but there are 256 at least. And then those 256 then combine with each other to form what musicians call harmonic associations, so that there's ultimately an unlimited number of Orisha, and that consciousness is in a constant state of evolution, which is why we don't want to become dogmatic or stagnant or stuck or judgmental, because that closes the door to seeing the world around us as it's unfolding.
Thank you. Okay, that's what I was trying to get at, because when we were having a discussion online, it kind of got into but what Odu says that. Is there a specific Odu that outlines that, what you just said?
Yes, but it's not in the Odu, it's in the language of the Odu. Let me give you an example. Are you ready?
Yes.
The one thing that's rarely talked about in any spiritual tradition, which is really an important question, and that is the question of what existed before creation. Have you ever thought about that? Well,
someone said triple darkness, right? Well, based on what the book said, it says triple darkness, and out of triple darkness came blah 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 blah. Based on the book, Yoruba conscious. I can read that whole passage where it says it came out of triple darkness. It was an egg, a Spiro, and then have you read that? Was that your book? That was William Bascom, I think, wrote that book, right? It was out of triple darkness. Hold on, let me see if I got. I can read I think it's a whole thing. I gotta get the actual passage where it says.
Yeah, listen, we could do that, or we could look at what the Yorubas themselves say.
Okay.
Reality before creation was called do. There's no triple, because triple is a number. Number is a way of differentiating. Once you have a number, you have time and space before and after, up and down, sideways, and forward and back. So all of that comes after the primal nothing. So the primal nothing is just that. It's nothing. It's called do in Yoruba. Do means darkness. You with me?
Aha. Yeah.
The source of darkness is do.
Right.
Now we use that as a negative pejorative word in English. I think that's yeah, you're laughing, but I'm telling you that's not an accident. I'm telling you that was a deliberate denigration of our faith and of our liturgical language. Absolutely.
Oh wow! Right. So they purposely used that word to describe something, which in actuality, wow, that was a deeper thing. Wow.
That's my belief. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. But when you repeat a fragment of a word in Yoruba, you're talking about the source of that thing. So do is darkness. Do is the source of darkness.
Super. Yeah. Right. What they say like exclamation point. Darkness.
Yes.
Super darkness. Right.
So what's the initial understanding of darkness in the liturgical language of Ifá? Do you know? The initial understanding of darkness is Odu. O meaning spirit, the spirit of darkness. The word Odu. Now, if Odu exists before creation, that means the world is born of the goddess, not God. It also means that at the foundation of creation is the feminine principle, which in Ifá we refer to as Iame Osharanga, the primal soup that creates all things, and the whole notion of demonizing the female principle is absurd. We don't live in a universe based on God doing juju. We live in a benevolent universe based on the power of unconditional love to create the world around us. Creation is co-creation, and we come to that understanding through an understanding of the word Odu. So
now, hold on before you go further. This is this is a segue, but they said that Eshu met Odu in the darkness. So did Eshu live in the darkness or with Odu, or what is that? Have you heard of this story about Eshu meeting Odu in the darkness?
Okay, let's back it up. That makes no sense at all. Darkness is nothing. So now you're saying darkness is nothing but Eshu because he's sneaking around, and we got to have some kind of patriarchal energy to justify the fact that we've got a patriarchal religion. Nonsense. You need to look at the fundamental metaphysical principle of Eshu, and that principle is the ability of human consciousness to speak to spirit and nature by virtue of the ability to translate resonance into language. That's the function of Eshu, not to trick people, not to be disruptive, not to be in charge. In other words, if you have the thought study, for example, in English, study, that's going to resonate at a certain resonance in your brain. It's going to light up a certain part of your brain, and you're going to use the word studies because that's what your parents taught you to identify that connection to that resonance. Now, if you're born in a Spanish-speaking culture, that same resonance, that same place in the brain is called estudiar. But Eshu, you ever thought about how strange it is that spirit speaks to you in the language that you understand? If you think about it, that makes no sense. Or it makes total sense because that's all that spirit can do, because we're dealing with vibration and frequency, and we've been given names to those vibrations and frequencies in the form of language. And the language allows us to interact in a way that we can co-create the world. Ifá says creation is co-creation.
Okay, I found out what it was. Okay, it was called Odu Iwori Otoropon, Iwori Otupan, or Orirete, where it says the universe begins as pure, formless darkness, Orin, Orun. Odu, the divine womb and cosmic intelligence, emerges as the female embodiment of this mysterious hidden space. As Shu descends upon it into this deep void and meets Odu in the absolute dark. So he descended. So where descend out of where? Establishing a partnership as Shu becomes the one who carries her messages and executes her cosmic laws.
So all right. So what version of Odu is that? Who wrote that? Which one are you?
I don't know. I'm. This is. I mean. This
all right.
Is
so the birth of Eshu, as it's taught in traditional Ifá, as I've studied it in Africa, says that Eshu is the son of Oshun, and Oshun is the principle of fecundity or fertility. And that the ability of light to form either a particle or a ray, that creates a polarity. And in that polarity, fertility occurs that allows for there to be multiplicity within creation. So if you follow the paradigm you're giving there, you're saying that Eshu was created separately from the rest of the universe.
Right.
And
I know. Okay, this is exactly where it comes from. Robert W. Woodruff Library. Are you familiar with this doctor that made this whole African traditional religions textbook? The Holy Odu Sacred. It's in Atlanta. The parables that was there. I think it was a. What's his name? I can tell you exactly. Who was the one? Coleman. Will Coleman and Brad Aust. Are you familiar with them?
They're very good friends, and
right. So I guess he was the one who that story came out. So that's what.
All right, and it's not consistent with the stories in my lineage, so I don't know what to tell you. Other than if we look at it metaphysically, it's not consistent with the bigger picture.
Okay.
You know, if you look at the Bible, people swear to you the Bible is the Word of God. Apparently, according to the Bible, you can't stone your slaves on Saturday. You have to wait till Sunday to kill them. I mean, you know, something being scripture and something being true is not necessarily the same thing.
But I get what you're saying. Like, so that's like a introduction into patriarchy by saying that this thing existed at the same time.
No, more fundamentally, the false notion that Babalawos are speaking for God is a Catholic idea that has nothing to do with Ifá spirituality. The fact that the priests in the Catholic Church are infallible, they speak God's truth, and you have to go to them for guidance is not an African idea at all. And the fact that a lot of people are buying that as a paradigm for how African traditional religion works means we need to do more training, more homework, more study, more effort to really grasp the bigger picture concepts that are being taught within the tradition, because those ideas lead to the whole point of Ifá, as I understand it, is to expand your consciousness, to expand your creativity, to embrace unconditional love, and to really experience the joy in life. It's not for you to become dependent on me and for me to tell you what to do. I can't imagine anything that would be a bigger waste of time than trying to control others. So, you know, we have to look at how we interpret things based on what we believe to be the function of Ifá and its place in the world. No?
I agree. So when I was like faced with this question on this thing, you know, this particular discussion, you know, you know, so he says, so the thing is, this is one of those challenges that challenges how we have come to accept our commonly held beliefs. Where do they come from? Once upon a time, people in diaspora just accepted it as fact. The Orisha were associated with Catholic saints. Now we know better. He got into that, and but when I discussed it, I was saying that in Lukumi, it's taught that Obatala in the beginning of time, that after the body was formed, it remained lifeless until Olodumare breathed Ashe, divine life, into it. The Orisha each contributed to aspects of divine power to humanity. Obatala gave form and clarity. Oshun gave sweetness, love, and fertility. Shango gave fire, courage, and authority. Oya gave movement, transformation, and the winds. Yemaya gave the waters of life and motherhood. And because each Orisha contributed to humanity, Lukumi priests often teach that Orisha are reflected within every person, while one person's family might teach a different lineage. It'd be different lineage, right? So he says, yes, there are similar explanations in Isheshe. Obatala supplied clay, Ogun supplied iron, Eshu provided the sand, the Obara Otorapan, that is Obara Otorapan, but that's not saying the same as Orisha is within you. What are your thoughts?
I disagree. I don't know what else to say. The Orishas are in you because the Orishas are a resonance that create consciousness, and that's all there is. Consciousness is everything. There's no physical matter separate from consciousness. We have light in either the form of a wave or a particle. That's all there is in all of creation. Light, a photon, either expressing itself as a wave, which means moving away from the source, or as a particle, which means turning in on itself and creating less distance between the wave itself. So when you have in the liturgical Ifá language, when a light wave moves away from the source, we call that Ashe. When it moves back in on itself, we call that E-ray. That polarity makes up all of creation. Now that polarity then takes on different, what would we call it? Different conscious characteristics, because the resonance that supplies the impulse for that light is different. But the whole process of expanding consciousness is to find the balance between Ashe and E-ray, right brain, left brain, expansive contraction. That balance is built into the very structure of reality. And as we push the boundaries of that balance, the one becomes two as the basis of African mathematics. And when the one becomes two, the universe expands. We call that the breath of life. And so the expansion of creation by separation is the principle of fertility, fecundity, procreation, and the principle of co-creation. And Ifá teaches that principle is based on what they call Ile Ife, or the house of unconditional love, so that we come to understand each other deeper by understanding a common origin, a common connected to creation, and a common agenda of what we want to do with our life.
So it sounds like to me what you're saying is that light and sound create reality.
Oh, I'm saying light creates sound. Sound creates reality. Light creates sound creates color creates reality. And it's all one continuous vibrational force. It's not something separate or different or has origins outside of consciousness at all.
And the water that's within us is the thing that is able to reflect that sound and light that comes, that vibration, to make actually.
Yes, let's save that conversation for next week. Yeah, water is the first substance that emerges in creation as a result of the heat generated by resonance. It's not an easily understood concept, but fire creates water in the universe. Every star in the universe is surrounded by a big ocean of water or hydrogen, and In Ifá, that's called Omi Olokun Orun, or the heavenly waters. And so, now we're down the road of evolution and moving away from the core principles of do, wa, olodumare, and
let's get into Olodumare real quick. So you just talked about Odu. You said do. So do, Odu, and then Oduduwa. We didn't get into Oduduwa. What is Oduduwa, and what is Olodumare?
Right. Okay. So this is a little subtle here, but O, the letter O means spirit in Yoruba. The letters OLO mean owner, but not owner in the sense of having a deed, but owner in the sense of complete comprehension of a particular phenomenon. So Odudu is the spirit of darkness in its primal form. Olodu is the understanding of darkness as it becomes manifest in the world. Those are two different things. So Olodumare is specifically an understanding of resonance that leads to the manifestation of what's called the rainbow serpent, or all the colors that are manifested through the resonance inherent in the 256 frequencies of Odu. Now, in the Western world, we're used to there being 12 frequencies within an octave, but in Ifá, there's 256 frequencies within an octave, which means the difference between each frequency is very, very subtle. And it's part of the miracle of initiation is that we get imprinted with those difference in frequencies and then call them up when we do a Reiki so that we can put other people into possession.
You know what's interesting, as a musician, I was taught we're all taught major and minor, but then there's also keys in between, right? So you have your major keys, you have your minor keys, but then you have like those, if you tune it, and then that's where you get like the Egyptian scale, you get the Arabic scale, you get all these different scales of tones that come. So that makes sense. So in American, thing, you have like do re mi fa sol la ti do 8, right. And then you have the minor like the I don't know what that would be, how to even say those keys, right? That are 8. But then you have the in-between octaves that are like not even like, there's so many different like levels in between like those keys, right? That you can go, right? So that's where you get to 256, because tonally you can hit those keys, but they're not on a piano or any particular percussive device that we own in America, right?
Using those syllables, do, re, mi, fa, that's called solfege. Solfege is a way of identifying intervals within a musical octave. The original phrases used in ancient Egypt for solfege, for what we call the major scale, it was not do, re, mi, fa, it was e, re, mi, fa. So when you look at the structure of the major scale, it's whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. And that geometric structure then creates the golden mean, or the shape of the seashell, which is the pattern in which resonance expands in all creation. So the interval between the first and the fourth note of the major scale, which we call do, fa, in ancient Egypt was called Ifá. That was the source of the word Ifá as the template for how evolution unfolds through the use of resonance.
Wow. So light creates sound, sound creates water.
Color creates heat creates water.
Right. So the sound, you know what? Because a microwave, right, creates heat, and microwaves use sound to create heat.
What do you think?
Wow. And that heat then can create What? That's why it's able to cook for you from the inside, because it's the water. It's actually creating like with a water droplet within that's heated up, and then it cooks the food.
Pretty much.
And so it's creating water within the food, and then from there it could either destroy. That's interesting. So all this stuff is based on sound, light, water, that's fire, that's created from light, and then is then able to manipulate the earth, I guess. Like
yes, but it's all fueled by what we would call consciousness.
Listen, that's why it's important to watch out what you listen to, what you hear, right?
It's also important to understand what you're saying and how to use liturgical words properly. Listen, I would like to put a pin in it for here because we've started with the real basics. We start going another direction, it's going to be off on another tangent, and unfortunately, people are pulling at me to do some stuff. So let's talk about the unfolding of Odu next week and the meaning of the liturgical words that are part of the evolutionary process. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds great. And this was a great. I mean, if anybody if you guys don't get it, I mean, this. So bottom line is that yes, the Orisha do live within us. Why? Because the Orisha are vibrations. They represent vibration.
Yeah, and there's nothing else in creation except vibration. God, I appreciate you. Good.
So are all Orishas within us? The answer is absolutely yes, they
are. In my humble opinion.
Right. So this was a great live. Thank you so much for your time. I know you got people calling.
No, listen, I'm sorry, but this conversation is far from over.
All right. Well, see you next Friday. I hope that you guys learned a lot today. Listen, coming up next, we are going to actually be going through the United States Odu by the Ori Institute. We're going to actually look into that. We're going to
I participated in that. It went really, really well. I was impressed. There's hope for us coming together. I'm grateful.
Right. So we're going to be going through this actual Odu and what it said. So the Odu was a Torah Meiji.
Yep.
Right. So we're going to be, that's going to be our next, it's coming up in like 30 minutes. So please join us for that while we go through the Odu for United States. And you're going to hear the prediction of, well, not necessarily a prediction, but it's not a prediction. Everybody gets this thing. People are not predicting the future. What they are doing is saying, what is the energy, the Odu, that this year for people that are in the United States, what they need to what that energy is. Correct? Is that because people get
listen, there is some prediction in the sense of if you ignore certain things, there's consequences.
Right. So give me about 20 minutes. We're gonna come right back. We're gonna go through this. We're gonna just play it and let it go, and if people want to come up and discuss it, they can. But thank you so much, Baba, and I appreciate
you're doing great work. Keep up the good work. We'll talk again.
And listen, please go and join his group at Egbe Iwapele Ifa. Please, his Facebook group. Please, support his books. His books are on Amazon. Awo Falokun. If you guys don't know who he is, he's been here every week just giving this. Just look up Awo Falokun on Amazon. You can see all his books, and please continue to support him. Listen, I mean, it's hard to get a Babalawo to dedicate time on a weekly basis to give information for free and break things down like this. A lot of times you got to pay for this information. So it's a blessing to have a person willing to just impart their knowledge, especially when they're got hundreds and hundreds of God children to tend to and ceremonies to do. So that's why he's okay, we got to hurry up and rush up. I got ceremonies. People.
Listen, just to be clear, it's not anything exceptional. It's my job. I'm out. Take care.
All right. Peace, guys.
Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, I search the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, way out. Yeah. See if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place. Creating the